Good evening, and thank you for joining our virtual town hall for the Loxahatchee, Royal Palm Beach, Wellington, Westlake, Jupiter Farms, and Greenacres communities. This meeting is being hosted by the Central and North Regional Offices on behalf of the School District of Palm Beach County and our Superintendent, Dr. Donald Fenoy. Please note that we're recording this meeting so those of you who cannot attend can watch it at a later date. Joining us this evening is Jamie Aranda as our sign language interpreter. I'm Valerie Haynes, Central Region Superintendent. With us tonight, the Central Region Instructional Superintendent for Secondary Schools, Karen Wetzel, Central Region Instructional Superintendents for Elementary Schools, Dr. Jennifer Sanders and Vivian Green are also joining us virtually. In addition, Dr. Camille Long will now introduce herself and her team from the North Region.
Good evening. It is my pleasure to join you this evening for our virtual town hall. I would like to begin by introducing board member Marsha Andrews and allow her to say a few words.
Good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to have you here today for our town hall. It's important that you have a chance to hear your questions and get answers. Your input is so important. We will give answers that we have available at this time, but we will continue to listen to your questions and provide answers as we move forward to the opening of school. I want to thank the teachers, the staff, the students, and everyone who have worked hard during this challenging time. But tonight is for you. We want to make sure your questions are answered. Thank you.
I would also like to introduce Board Vice Chair Chuck Shaw.
Good evening, everybody. And again, thank you so much for being part of this program tonight. It's important for us in the school district to make sure that we're communicating and receiving information at the same time. We need to communicate our thoughts, but it's critical for us to be able to receive your thoughts and what's on your mind. We have gone through things that nobody would have ever dreamed we would be facing at this time. But we're concerned, our priority, our efforts are totally committed to ensuring that your children have a good, safe, and productive school year, that we do it the right way, and that we address all of the challenges that we have forward. So again, thank you so much to everybody who's participating tonight.
Also joining us this evening are individuals from the North Region staff: Joseph Lee, Maria Bishop, Robin Brown, all serve as principal supervisors within the North Region, assisting our principals.
Again, we would like to welcome you to tonight's town hall. This gives you and our stakeholders, another opportunity for us to be able to share the ways in which we are preparing for the reopening of schools. We would like to take this opportunity to also welcome the city officials participating this evening. With us tonight, we have from Greenacres, Mayor Joel Flores. From the Village of Royal Palm Beach, Councilman Jeff Hamara, and Education Advisory Board members, Lisa Ryan and Dr. Bill Thalamer. From the Village of Wellington, Mayor Ann Gerwig is with us tonight, with Vice Mayor Tanya Siskind, Village Manager Paul Schofield, Assistant Village Manager Jim Barnes, and Councilman John McGovern and Michael Napoleone, as well as General Services Director Ed De La Vega. Loxahatchee Groves, Town Manager Jamie Tidcombe, and Westlake, Manager Kim Kasel.
The purpose of tonight's town hall is to share information with the community by highlighting the ongoing work and review proposed or reopening plans for the 2021 school year. These town halls were organized by city, region, or language to better address the unique needs of our communities. Last night, many of our residents participated in town halls, and a couple of nights ago, we had many participate in town halls within their native language, whether that be Spanish, Haitian Creole, or Portuguese. Town halls are meant to complement the other ways the district has collected feedback from various community groups, such as the parents and our employee surveys. These events are open to all community members, but town halls are being recorded to ensure individuals who cannot attend can still access the information being covered tonight. In tonight's town hall, we will spend our time sharing ongoing work in the district, as well as reviewing initial reopening options. Please note that our preparation work for the new normal at school centers is quickly evolving based on the latest information from the CDC, the Department of Education, the Florida Department of Health, and our district's Health Advisory Committee. Also, I want to share that community members were encouraged to submit questions in advance of tonight's meeting. We would like to thank you for participating and sending in so many great questions that provided so much additional input for us as district employees. Between both regions, we received hundreds of questions. So tonight we'll be answering some of those questions. Some were multiple questions, and so we've kind of organized them in categories. And as time permits, we'll answer additional questions, as many as possible.
During the first half of this town hall, we will highlight district-wide efforts that have been ongoing since schools closed in mid-March due to COVID-19. This includes work related to summer learning opportunities, professional development and supports, as well as addressing the internet access. The summer learning opportunities provided by the district are virtual. Students with individualized education plans are being offered the opportunity to continue the learning this summer. Approximately 6,500 students are currently enrolled and participating in virtual learning 4 days per week. Our talented teachers are also offering credit and course recovery options, as well as enrichment programs for English language learners and migrant students. We are also offering a targeted intervention program for select students. Each elementary school was allocated teachers to work virtually with students that are below grade level in small groups, targeting specific deficiencies in literacy and math. About $1 million were allocated to our schools this summer to provide this great opportunity for students to catch up for missed instruction, especially for those students that are significantly behind. In addition, all students have the option to take part in self-paced virtual activities outlined as part of our Summer Learning Essentials website, which was launched earlier this month. These activities provide an additional opportunity for students to sharpen their skills or master standards in preparation for the next grade level. Activities include virtual field trips and other interactive opportunities to keep learning alive during the summer months. The district also recently approved summer leases for a small number of community-based organizations, such as the Boys and Girls Club and For My Children, to name a few. They are able to host face-to-face summer camps in selected school buildings. Here's a screenshot of our Summer Learning Essentials website. If you click on the top where it says Summer Learning Essentials, you will be able to access virtual libraries. We have partnered with our public library system to provide plenty of reading resources to our students. Also, virtual learning experiences and field trips, as well as targeted intervention resources by grade level and subject area. The address is listed on the bottom of the slide, but you can also go and tour the homepage at palmbeachschools.org to access the resources that support continuous learning over the summer. In addition, the district has also offered numerous professional development opportunities and support for students and staff in response to the COVID-19. Schools and regional offices received ongoing feedback regarding distance learning during the school closures. Some students and parents had a great experience, while others did not. So we listened to your feedback and moved quickly to develop professional development opportunities for teachers to grow and calibrate this summer, including topics such as effective distance learning implementation, re-engaging and reaching those unengaged students, as well as the CDC cleanliness protocols. Also, mental health supports for students are ongoing, despite school closures during the using telehealth services such as phone and even online. During the closure period, hundreds and hundreds of students continue to participate in counseling sessions virtually. Our district also hosted 2 summer institutes recently that were open to all members of the community, including our teachers and administrators. One of them is a Hispanic Latino Studies, and the other one, African American, and Caribbean Studies.
It is important to note the digital divide goes beyond distance learning and education. Without internet access, households are limited in the ways they're able to interact with health professionals, government officials, and other community members. When the district transitioned to distance learning in mid-March in response to the pandemic, we knew not every student would have access to a stable internet connection. Our principals and teachers and resource staff made every effort to connect with every student without the ability to connect virtually, utilizing Google Meets or Google Classroom. Thinking outside of the box, they found creative ways to provide instruction using the telephone or partnering with businesses or organizations to assist with distributing resources to our most vulnerable students. We also know there will always be a need for a Plan B return to distance learning. In the event of another COVID outbreak or any other event, such as a hurricane, it may require prolonged school closures. Addressing the digital divide has a huge return on investment. The district is excited to partner with different entities to finally address the need for internet access in all of our communities. The district has made a conscious decision to use the COVID-19 pandemic as an opportunity to bridge the digital divide in Palm Beach County. Our mission is to grant all residents, regardless of zip code, access to reliable internet service in their neighborhoods. Although we know this is a big challenge, our solution relies heavily on the involvement of public and private partners. Over the last several weeks, district staff has been engaging key stakeholders in the Internet Access Project. Palm Beach County has also set aside $10 million of Federal CARES Act funding for what the county is calling digital inclusion projects. The $10 million allocation by the Palm Beach County Commission will go towards things such as build out of infrastructure in coverage areas prioritized in partnership with the county and the school district, pole attachment agreements with FP&L, covering one-time and recurring costs. On this slide, you'll see some of the short and long-term strategies we are undertaking to connect families in Palm Beach County. For the short term, hotspots, internet sponsorships, fundraising for Wi-Fi extenders, and the long term, Wi-Fi extenders, internet sponsorships, partnerships with local municipalities, ensuring subsidized housing participants have internet access, and connecting families to free subsidized offers from internet companies. The district is securing funds to purchase hotspots and internet sponsorships for needy families. In addition to securing long-term partnerships with the county and municipalities to ensure the necessary infrastructure for Wi-Fi exists in all of our communities. Given the geographic focus for tonight's town hall, I wanted to highlight some of the great things that are happening within the Western communities. We're aware that some areas were without internet access, so we worked hard to provide those families with hotspots and additional services. In addition to that, some families lived in areas or properties with multiple family members and students within our schools, and they were provided with the necessary technology to keep learning going. As we reimagine schools, let's transition to the district's initial options for reopening. We will utilize time during tonight's town hall to review the initial plan shared by the school board on June 10th and collect any additional feedback you may have on the initial plan. As you can see from the slide, it shows what we've been doing between January and March. Just for context, the district began monitoring and responding to the COVID-19 pandemic as early as January 2020. The district closed schools in mid-March per the guidance of the Florida Department of Education and the state of Florida. These events were similar to what we saw happening across the nation and the world. As we talk about the most recent months, I will share the district is currently reimagining the reopening of schools based on feedback collected during parents and employee surveys, and these virtual town halls as well. The recommendations from our local experts will play a part, as well as guidance from the state of Florida Department of Education. I wanted to take a moment to flag upcoming dates where the community can learn more about the finalized reopening plans. You'll notice that we have a board public workshop on survey results on July 1st, 2020. A reopening task force will share options on July 8th, 2020. And the final decision will be communicated to our parents and community on July 15th, 2020.
Superintendent Dr. Donald Fenoy created a reopening task force to support decision-making around the reopening of schools for the 2020-2021 school year. The reopening task force, also known as the RTF, is comprised of key district staff, including principals, assistant principals, teachers, staff from operations, human resources, just to name a few. The RTF proposes considerations, implications, and also possibilities for reopening options to the superintendent, his executive team, and the school board. Some of the options that they're taking into account include an emphasis on the safety and security of all students and staff, prioritizing an equitable environment for all students, ensuring high-quality instruction, and also having adaptability for sudden closures. It is important to note that superintendent also created a health advisory committee, since the experts and the expertise of our local health officials is absolutely critical during the decision-making process. The next slide focuses around the instructional options that have already been shared before that is being considered at this time. The RTF proposed 3 possible reopening options on June 10th during the board workshop. They are: the first option is full-time return to school face-to-face on our school campuses. The second option is a blended model, which combines face-to-face instruction with distance learning. And the third option would be distance learning exclusively. So if we look at that slide a little bit closer, on the left side, when you're looking at the full-time in school, what that looks like is back to in-person, as we know, teaching, but always being prepared to go virtual. Dr. Fenoy puts this perfectly by basically calling it green light, red light. There are times that we can continue teaching, being together, but then there are times that we have to put the red light on and be able to move virtually quickly based on, could be cases of COVID-19 as far as a spike, or it could be another situation such as a hurricane. Teachers will continue to incorporate technology. As you know, we've had trailblazers in this district for a few years now, and that will continue to expand. In the blended model, which is in the middle, some days are in person at the school centers and some days virtual. Again, still continuing to use Google Classroom, and then use the teachers using the flip model of instruction using Google Classroom as well as pre-recorded content. Equitable access to face-to-face instruction. And then on the right side, the third option under distance learning is utilizing Google Classroom and Google Meet daily, and also focusing on quality instruction. To wrap up the conversation on reopening of school options, we wanted to share 2 quick videos on the district's ongoing efforts to keep students and staff safe during these challenging times. The first video shows the work being done at the school centers to prepare for reopening. The second video shows the measures that our district is taken on the school buses to keep them clean and disinfected. Before we move into the Q&A portion, the question and answer portion of the town hall, we wanted to remind you about our summer feeding sites. We know that food insecurity remains a big challenge in some of our Palm Beach County communities. So I wanted to take a moment to remind you about our summer feeding sites. To date, over 3 million meals have been distributed since schools closed in mid-March. Meal distribution will continue into the summer at 52 school locations across Palm Beach County. Distribution takes place from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Please visit our webpage dedicated to summer feeding for more information. Now we're going to move to the Q&A slide, and this is where we're going to take an opportunity to be able to answer as many questions as we can. We know that there are many questions out there. So community members were encouraged to submit questions in advance of this meeting. We will now answer any pre-submitted questions as time permits. If there are any questions that we don't get to, the regional offices will be reaching out to you via email or phone call. So Dr. Long, let's first get started with some of the theme questions. We received hundreds of questions in anticipation of tonight's town hall. And what we did was we organized them into larger themes in the interest of time, as we definitely want to cover as many of your questions as possible. Please note that we will pass along all of your feedback that we have already received and continue to answer this evening to the reopening task force. Also, it's important to bring attention to the fact that the answers shared during tonight's town hall are based on information that we know today. Things have changed rapidly over the past several weeks and almost daily since schools initially closed in mid-March. And we fully expect that the situation to remain fluid for the foreseeable future. Now, some of these questions, and because I will explain the central region is in close proximity, obviously, to the north and the south, but we often share the same students and same families. So with having multiple town halls, many of these questions have been duplicated. And so we are hoping that for those of you that are listening out there, if you hear your question and it has already been covered in a different town hall, is because we weren't sure which town hall you were going to be in. So some are going to be duplicated, but they have been themed for easier flow. Now, diving into some of the major themes, the first theme is going to be around, it's related around the health-related data or how current COVID-19 data is being used to inform district decision-making. So the superintendent created a health advisory committee composed of local and state medical as well as health professionals to provide feedback on best practices related to the CDC guidelines. Their expertise will guide final decisions related to the reopening of schools. And also note that they will continue to advise the superintendent after the school year opens. This way, we can ensure that we are looking at the data in real time when making decisions concerning to district-operated schools in Palm Beach County. The next theme was around the parent and guardian survey in regards to the reopening of schools that the school district conducted. As you know, the data is already back, and it has been already shared or will be shared, has been already recently shared with our faculty and staff and will continue to be shared. But parent and the feedback collected from the survey, as well as the feedback collected from the employee survey, because one of those was also completed, will be used to inform those decisions related to the final reopening plans. We also want to remind you that everyone watching, that we are going to be sharing, or the district will be sharing, the final findings of all the surveys at the upcoming board meeting and workshop, which is scheduled for July 1. It is important to note that the recommendations from the health and the medical professionals, as well as the guidance from the Florida Department of Education, the governor, and the U.S. Department of Education, has been and will continue to be a factor into the district's decision on reopening of schools. The important takeaway is that safety and the well-being of our students and staff continue to be top priorities in this work. Dr. Long, you want to take the next theme?
Sure. Theme 3 was a commonly asked question, and it was related to many different components of the distance learning. The question asked, what would distance learning look like in 2021? Would students have a portion of their learning, even if we are, in the event we're doing in-person schooling, will they still have a portion of the online learning taking place? So as mentioned earlier, I first want to share that our teachers are continuing to participate and are engaged in professional development opportunities that are focused on distance learning, as well as strategies for working with unengaged students. One of the questions we received was from a parent who shared she was having a difficult time keeping her children encouraged around the distance learning and how to keep them excited about it. And so we're working with our teachers to make sure their skill set in engaging the students and keeping them excited and keeping that connection is up to par. In addition to that, we will continue professional development and other supports for our instructional staff to help build their skills around the distance learning platform. For some teachers, this platform was a really new thing to start, a journey to embark upon. Of course, we use technology in the classroom, but to switch completely to the online required, some professional development. And we recognize we have some growth opportunities there, and we are definitely working towards improving that. Around the distance learning, if it's determined that schools can reopen based on a combination of multiple factors, we know that a serious outbreak could happen anytime in our communities, which could require us to transition back to the distance learning. So we must be ready for kind of the stop and go that Ms. Haynes discussed earlier in tonight's presentation. So the district is taking all the steps over the summer to clarify expectations as it relates to distance learning with our staff members. We recognize that our student learning experiences are varied, and in some cases, it might have been better than in others, but we definitely want to have a robust platform, robust instructional strategies for our students, and we want them to be engaged and excited about being online in the event that we have to be online full time. Beyond the professional development, I would share that our academic teams at the district and within the regions have been working diligently to produce high quality instructional materials that teachers can use for the distance learning purposes. We work to organize those materials to make it easier for teachers to access and utilize those resources, which are all very important. These resources also have been standardized around student learning experiences as much as possible, but we are expecting a high bar of instruction from all of our teachers, and we are working diligently to support that as well. Now, theme 4 was about the start of the school year. Several of the questions focus around the timeline for opening. At this time, we are planning to open on August 10th for all of our students. However, the district has not yet determined what that would look like for the students. We have been asking, of course, for your parent and community input and receiving that. Many of you have written detailed responses around your feelings about the start of the school year, which that information has been shared with our school reopening task force. And that task force will be working on the options that will be presented on July 15th to our community by our superintendent. And that is a joint effort for all of us.
All right, so
now, Ms. Haynes, at this time, share some of the questions that we received, some of the individual questions we received from the community members.
Sure, let's go over to those questions that were not covered by those themes. Okay. So there was a great question. You already covered the one about classes starting, but there was a great question around from Andrew and Steve. Will all the students in elementary school be required to wear a mask during school hours? That's been a hot question with a wondering, especially now since, the Palm Beach County has a mandated use of face coverings at this time, which happened very recently. That would be the first question. But Steve had a follow-up question with that. So first of all are they going to be required to wear one? And then the follow-up is whether the schools will be providing face covering or mask for each student that does not have one.
Okay. I have a question from a parent. If classes resume in person, I'm afraid, and my kids are as well. We've had a family member to pass away from COVID, and we have 2 family members who are still hospitalized at this time. How will teachers and staff be prepared to handle or to make this situation palatable for my child to attend? So our teachers and staff are working with their school principals on ways to address the return to school. So our very first days are going to be spent on the mental health pieces, talking about, giving the facts about the virus, really talking about how students are feeling and making sure that they are aware of the protocols that are in place for the school, to make sure it is clean, to make sure the students are aware of what we're going to do to be precautionary. And we will do that as a community. Very similar to what you've done probably in your own home, making sure that when we are, washing our hands frequently and, just being extremely precautious, and also making sure that we follow and the rules that we've established within our home. We'll be doing those same things within our classrooms and within our school communities on each of the campuses.
Dr. Long, I'm going to go back to my original question. I was not able to answer it. My apologies. So,
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. But the question was around, because I know we're teaming this up. So the question was around the wearing of masks, right? And if not, if are the schools going to be providing them? So what I can say right now about that is that we have not, as a district, made a determination on whether students will be required to wear masks or not, or if it will be optional. And as of now, also in regards to whether the district will be providing masks for each student, well, obviously it will depend on what the expectation is, number one. And number two, that decision really has not been made. So the second question from Steve really depends on the first one from Andrew. And since that decision has not been made, we're unable to answer that at this time. But we do know that, again, the safety of our students and staff is truly of utmost importance.
Okay, sorry about that. I had a little technology glitch here, an interruption in my internet. So I thought you had answered it. All right, so what is the protocol? This is from Lainey and Sandra and Tim in the acreage. The question is, what is the protocol if a child becomes sick during the school day, or if he or she is showing symptoms of, the virus? And so the school district will partner with the department, the health department, and they're working on the protocols that are appropriate for our students and our staff members to determine, what are we doing when we have a student on campus and they are showing indications of the virus, or maybe they come in and tell us they tested positive. And so we're going to be very clear and succinct around those details of that plan and sharing it with parents, but that has not been finalized at this time. But just know that there will be a very clear and concise plan. And of course, the goal is to make sure that the spread is minimal, and that we are definitely securing our students to make sure that they are not in harm's way.
We received a few questions around ESC, students with IEPs and individualized educational plans, and how we're going to be providing those services. So we received a question from Alba, from Laura, Scott, to name a few. And the question really is around how are students to receive their ESC or IEP or any special teaching. My child has several teachers that help with her education, like reading, comprehension, and speech. and she can't get this from hybrid or virtual schooling. And the follow-up question to that, that seem to be somewhat similar, is how will elementary ESC students get their one-on-one therapy? So just know that, we really do appreciate your feedback. Our students with special needs and with services, of course, are some of our most fragile students, and we need to be very creative in the way that we're able to provide those services to our students. I want for you to be reassured that we are developing plans that address the needs of all of our ESC students. Our Director of Exceptional Student Education and his team are also following the recommendations of the Department of Education and sharing this information with our school-based ESC contacts. We will make sure that we continue to provide this individualized support for students as best as we can. It is important to note that, as I mentioned in the presentation, we still have over 6,500 ESC students that are currently being serviced virtually. It's different than being face-to-face, yes, but it is a next best thing for now. Unfortunately, we are dependent on the COVID-19 and how that is affecting us and our students' education, but we're doing the very best that we can to ensure that we protect the services for our ESC students.
The next question is from a parent of a high school student, and the question is about spacing on the campus, and it's actually from a couple of our parents. So it's Sharon S, Joe P, Jaime. The question was, since some of the campuses are so large, will there be an effort to spread out the students to use other space? So I would say that just as we are reimagining our schools, we are reimagining the space that will be used in those schools. For example, Wellington High, Palm Beach Central, Western Pines, Seminole Ridge, all have huge courtyards. I'm thinking of the schools, picturing them in my mind, have huge courtyards. And we have been thinking about that. How can we utilize some of that space where we can, for portions of the class time, have students to get into the open areas and really kind of provide that open space for them to be in. So yes, we are reimagining the space and the purpose of the space and how we use that space during this time as well.
So Stephanie and a few others asked, just to take it from there, Dr. Long, around recess. So we're talking about secondary schools, but what about at the elementary level? Will elementary children have recess, and how will that be handled if they do? Do you have someone cleaning the playground equipment before the next group of kids will go out to play? So, as you know, things are changing rapidly. Obviously, the cleanliness and the way the campus need to be managed during the school day, the expectations and the need is going to be a lot greater than what we used to know with our new normal. We are working to ensure the students are safe when they are on campus. One of the tasks that the reopening task force is working on is developing those plans to address recess, school lunches, hall transitions, to name a few, to minimize the risk for students. As soon as those plans are finalized, it will be shared with the stakeholders. But it is also important to know that all of our schools are individualized, right? They're different, and depending on the layout of the schools and the buildings. So our school administrators will be absolutely within those guidelines that we are provided, creating plans to ensure that that the CDC guidelines, as best as we can, and the expectations of social distancing is followed as much as possible and as best as we can.
Okay. So our next question is regarding sports activities. And this question appears to be from a student and a couple parents, says football dads. It asks about football activities and practice. Will they have contact? What will that look like this year? And it's also has a statement. I think the kids need to get out and have that socialization and have some normalcy. So our district's manager of athletics is working closely with our Florida High School Athletic Association. And she is also a member of the reopening task force. So as soon as new provisions and protocols are available by way of the Florida High School Athletic Association, the plan to move forward will be shared by that same task force. So July 15th, you'll probably receive additional information regarding that football FHSA sanctioned sports.
So Mavis, and then we received a question from Lisa. And this is a really good question. We touched on it earlier in the presentation tonight, but it is certainly something that we need to revisit again. And it's all around the social and emotional needs of students and staff, right? So one of them, indicated that there was a statement, I can't imagine the gravity of the position you're in and the decisions that you have to make. You're not going to make everybody happy. Well, we know that. But I ask you to consider the long-term mental effects that these last few months have had on these kids. And you're absolutely on point. So I want to thank you for bringing up such an important point. Know that our district has an entire department dedicated to behavioral and mental health. Programs regarding social emotional learning are being offered in our schools, as well as each school having a full-time behavioral mental health counselor. And that's thanks to you for passing the referendum that allowed us to be able to hire one per school. But as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we still have hundreds and hundreds of students that are still currently in a virtual format receiving those type of counseling supports because of what this has cost. I mean, not only are our students affected, but we know you as parents and community members, you've been affected also, as well as our teachers, our staff. Everyone has been affected by what we're experiencing in the new world that we live in now. So we know that that is extremely important. One of the things that we have talked about as principal supervisors with our schools, and just today we had our own town hall with our deputy superintendent and also with our superintendent, Dr. Fenoy. And a lot of the conversation was around planning for, when we plan for opening, we need to plan for social emotional needs. We need to plan for building those relationships back and making sure that our students learn those routines of being back in school and making sure that they're okay. That is the first piece, the first big event that we need to, it's not an event, it's the first priority that we need to take on before we dive into the academics, even though we know that our students are behind because they haven't had the instruction that we know that we can provide on a day-to-day basis, face-to-face.
And Valerie, if you don't mind, if that particular parent is on tonight and you're aware of a student who is in crisis and needs those supports, if you want to reach out either to, at the end of this meeting, we're going to share our emails, or if you want to reach out to one of us, we would be more than happy to connect that family with those services, because it has been ongoing and we want to make sure that they are receiving the appropriate support if you feel like it's in a crisis at this time.
Excellent point, Dr. Long.
All right. So I have a question. This question came from the mother of a teacher, a new teacher, and she is concerned. She's the family member of someone working in one of our schools and concerned about safety measures, how we're going to treat the teachers, and will they, kind of just concerned. So I would say that we are considering our teachers and staff as well as our students. If the teachers are not in the building, then that's not a win-win for us. We definitely, the cleaning protocols, considering how supplies are shared within the classroom, different protocols are all being reviewed for our teachers, and teachers are sitting on committees to be a part of discussing and sharing with the reopening task force, as well as our superintendent, what they feel is appropriate, the things that would make them feel safe, make them feel more comfortable in the classrooms. So that is ongoing work, and we will continue to tweak and be better with that. I think that we will continue to share ways that teachers feel should be implemented in our schools to make them feel safe.
We received a question about, I think this is important to note now, will there be standardized testing for the 2020-21 school year? Well, that is certainly not a decision for our district to make. That is determined by the Florida Department of Education. But I will say that so far as we know, it has been stated that the standardized testing will continue, and it will occur for 2020-21 school year. If you are interested in seeing that information about that can be found on the state website at fldoe.org. And once you're on the website, you can click on coronavirus page for more information around standardized testing.
Okay, we have a question about students needing additional supports. This is from an elementary mom. She and her friends were talking about some of their children need additional supports in the area of writing. Their scores prior to us closing indicated that they were not on level, and they have been working as a group to try to help them, their children. When one person is off from work, it's summarizing a letter. And so they want to know what supports will be there if we go to online learning, or if we have to have online resources. And so if we go to the online platform, and throughout the year, even if we are in the event that we're having in-person school, we'll always have a portion of online happening. And we will continue to include parent resources available online. And we encourage our parents to really look in that area on our district's webpage. It has parent resources, strategies for helping your students with in the areas of ELA, in the area of writing. And it's an opportunity for you as a parent to utilize the strategies you feel comfortable with. In the letter, it also says, I'm not a teacher. I really don't know, everything that's expected. And I'm trying to meet the requirements to help my child get better. We have helpful tips with your child on writing. And we can also engage the teacher around the remedial pieces and providing additional supports. Please keep in mind that whether we are online or in person, small group instruction is always a part of what we're doing. And students who need intervention will receive that. And that is one of the professional development opportunities that have been happening for our teachers and staff during this time that we have been out, and that will continue throughout the school year. We're working to make sure teachers are effectively providing remediation and helping our students to get on grade level in the subjects.
All right, so we have a question from Ding Ding. If there is a confirmed case in an elementary school, will you consider to close the school again? We are working very closely with the Superintendent's Health Advisory Committee, as well as the Florida Health Department of Education. And our district is in the process of developing those protocols and guidance around how to react to positive cases of COVID-19 in the building, right? So we have already protocols for before COVID-19, we've already reacted towards the flu, different strands of flu. So we already have protocols for flu. I know COVID-19 is quite different, and we do not have a vaccine yet, but the protocols will be developed before the reopening of schools. But that is something that they're right now considering, obviously, and working through to come up with those protocols in preparation for reopening.
So the next question is from Anthony. Anthony and the other parent is anonymous and says, what about the people who send their kids and lie and don't say they're sick? Okay.
Oh,
okay. Yeah. I mean, that's a good.
But that's real.
That's a good question. I get it. So I would say that we definitely are going to follow CDC protocols. So if we have students that are displaying symptoms, we are going to follow the measures that have been outlined for us. But in addition to that, I would say that our schools, our communities, and our students share with the adults when they are in need of help. And so as a community, it's up to us to also partner with one another and not to ostracize or make anyone feel, uncomfortable or unwanted. But we want to make sure that we can provide the supports. If the family doesn't have the supports, we want to provide those supports to ensure that we keep our school environment as well as our full community safe. And I would say that our communities of Westlake and Wellington, Royal Palm, Jupiter Farms, we're a family. So we all are somewhat interconnected. So it's up to us to come together as a community to support one another. But we will definitely follow the CDC protocols around excluding students or whatever protocols are established. That's a good question.
That's a really good question. So we know, Dr. Long, that we have quite a few faculty and staff out there listening tonight from the Western communities. And so one of the questions that came up from Larissa is what specific steps will be taken to protect the adults who work on school campuses? So I guess I'm assuming that Larissa must be an employee of ours. So I just want to make sure that all of our faculty and staff knows that the Division of Facilities Management team is working with the environmental services to ensure that the current CDC guidelines are being followed to the best of our ability. District protocols for employees that are currently working at the school sites are already in place. And for those of you out there know that our buildings, our principals are already and have been reporting to their workplace, as well as our custodians have been working diligently to clean and prepare the building for opening. So all of the employees, including myself, you see me in my office right now, we have all completed a training in regards to COVID-19 employee protocols. So we are already following such protocols, but as the situation changes and shifts, we will continue to adjust those protocols. Well, we're down to about 5 minutes left, Dr. Long.
Okay, you want to do
maybe one more question?
Do one more. Let's try to find a good one. Let's see. We have one from a parent of a senior. My child is a senior this year. They are concerned about advanced placement courses, AP courses, as well as community service. And the parent is also asking, will all the course offerings be available to the student to make sure if we are online? And so I would say that advanced placement, dual enrollment, IB, which is our International Baccalaureate, those are all governed by College Board and different entities, and they will share with us their processes and procedures. And so as soon as we have that, we will alert the school centers, but we will offer courses based on what our students need. We will not offer courses to, make it easier for ourselves. The goal is to provide all of our students in Palm Beach County with the courses they need to continue their programs or to meet their academic needs. And that will continue to take place. As far as online community service offerings, if you look on our district webpage in the parent resource section, there are online community service projects and items listed. If you want to reach out to me by email, at the end, you'll get my email. If you want to reach out to me directly, I will, this question is mixed between a couple people. So if you want to reach out to me directly, I can provide the email address for your senior. And it also asks about seniors who have early release. Will they be allowed to leave the campus? And it says, I hope they aren't, it's kind of a statement. I hope they aren't coming back. We're probably going to have tighter protocols about students coming back and forth on campus. I can't say we have not solidified that, but keep in mind that we will want to be very strict about where students are on the campus and who they are with, so that in the event that someone is in contact with someone who is ill, that we are able to backtrack and alert the families of what's happening, what may have occurred with their student. All right. So just a quick little statement, Dr. Long. We want for everyone to know that we're still working
As everyone can tell through the details related to implementing social distancing guidelines and what a physical return to school campuses will look like. So this includes decisions related to the wearing of the facial coverings for teachers and students, which we have received a lot of questions about. But what we want our public to know is that the reopening task force, along with district leadership and health advisory committee, regional offices, as well as school leaders, and our various employee groups are still working on the operational pieces of initial school reopening options. So information will be shared as soon as it becomes available, but please make sure to tune in to the reopening task force board meeting, which is scheduled for July 8th. To learn more. And you can always watch it live by just logging into the palmbeachschools.org. So why don't you close this out, Dr. Long?
Okay. If there are any additional questions, on the next slide, you will see the email addresses for Valerie and myself. Feel free to email us at any time or make contact. Phone numbers are listed. I would like to thank our board members for attending tonight's meeting. Again, thank you, Mrs. Marsha Andrews, and thank you, Mr. Chuck Shaw, our vice chair of the school board. And we also like to thank our other city officials that participated in tonight's virtual town hall. We want to thank you for advertising and being a part of it. I am sure we will be connecting this way in the future. But again, thank you so much for being a part of this community outreach. And at this time, that concludes our virtual town hall. Thank you so much for joining us.